Hey guys, Caitlin here. I am excited about today's video because today we are talking about Classical Conversations Essentials. So as you can see, I am a CC mom. I have been with Classical Conversations. My family's been with Classical Conversations. We just finished our 5th year. So we have done foundations since my oldest was 5. And this past year was our first year in Essentials. So if you follow my channel, if you've seen any of my videos, I've done lots and lots of videos about foundations and our review about it and how we use it and like organization, all kinds of stuff. And then last year we entered Essentials. So I did a couple of videos just showing like how I set up my manual and that kind of stuff at the beginning, but Essentials was new to us. And so now that we've gone through a whole entire year, I wanted to do a video that both explained Essentials for those who don't know a whole lot about it and gave kind of my review and my thoughts after our first year. So let's get started. All right, so if you're not familiar with Classical Conversations, which I'm guessing if you're watching this video, you probably are, but just in case, Classical Conversations has different parts, different levels. And so the youngest level is called Foundations, and that is from kids who are 4 years old up to like 6th grade age. And so that is something that's done in the morning, and they go for a half day once a week and learn memory work. I have a whole separate video specifically about foundations and how it works. You can see that if you're like brand new to the whole CC lifestyle and want to learn more about that. You can watch that separately, but that's like part 1. And then when your child hits like 4th grade age, so 9 years old, which would be roughly 4th grade, they can add on the second part, which is Essentials, and that is in the afternoon. So they would go still in the morning to Foundations, but in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, so 3 years. In the afternoon, they would stay after lunch and do Essentials. And so Essentials is something that is basically a language arts curriculum. So if you're familiar with Foundations, most people will tell you that Foundations is a full curriculum. You just need to add language arts and math to make it like a full, well-rounded curriculum that should meet all of your homeschool standards. Now, a lot of people supplement, and that's, you know, like that's fine, but technically Foundations is your spine, and you add math and language arts. Once your child is 4th grade or 9 years old and you add in Essentials, that is your language arts portion. So at that point, you just would need to add in your own math program on top of that. Now, like with Foundations, where people supplement a lot, some people supplement Essentials with stuff too, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But in theory, in general, you do Foundations in the morning, you do Essentials in the afternoon. That covers your bases. I mean, obviously you have stuff to do at home, right, on the other 4 days. But as far as curriculum needs, and then you add in a math of your choosing, which at the time that I'm recording this, CC has just rolled out their new math program. We're still a few years away from that being something that like everyone can purchase for all the levels. So at some point, if you're watching this in the future, that might be CC's math, or it may be whatever we use, right? Start Math, whatever math you use. Okay, so like I mentioned, it's repeated for 3 years, or I mentioned that you were part of it for 3 years. It repeats for 3 years. So you do it in 4th grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade, and people will call that your tour. So first tour is a 4th grader. It's their first time through Essentials. Second tour, someone who's second time. So technically, you know, you could join CC in your 5th grade year and just do 2 tours, but you go through it 3 times, and some things stay the same from year to year and some things vary a little bit, but for the most part, it stays the same for all 3 years. So that first year is kind of like getting to know it, getting your feet wet, learning some stuff, and the next year you learn that stuff again, but you learn it deeper, you do, you know, you expand on a little bit more, and then the 3rd year, same thing. So you kind of build on it year to year, which is nice because it's kind of overwhelming, and that first year it's just like drinking from a water hose. So it's nice that you know, okay, we're gonna see this again next year, and then again the next year. All right, so the 3 parts that make up Essentials are EEL, which is Essentials English Language Curriculum. EEL stands for Essentials English Language, and I can never remember what that is. I used to be in the public school system, so I'm used to like ELL, English Language Learner, and so it's hard for me to remember. But anyway, this is your Essentials curriculum. So this is one part of it, and then you have IEW writing, and then there is a math component. So, and I'll break down all 3 of those for you in just a second. Okay, so EEL is a Classical Conversations specific curriculum. So this was written by CC. You'll notice it kind of matches the way our foundations books look. This is written by CC for the Essentials program. Now, I'm sure if you're not in CC and you wanted to buy it, you can on their website, but it's not like a widely used curriculum outside of CC. It's a CC specific curriculum that covers grammar, parts of speech and sentence parts and diagramming and all those English language type components. So that is the first part. There are these charts that you memorize, and that's what you do for your language arts as far as like the grammar portion. I know that's confusing because in CC, the word grammar does not mean what I grew up with the word grammar meaning. When I grew up with like English grammar was like how do you diagram a sentence and what do you capitalize and those kinds of things. So it's a little bit different from how CC defines it, but I think you know where I'm going with this. And then the second part of the day, so you go to Foundations in the morning, you have lunch, and then you go to Essentials. And Essentials for the first portion, you go through your Essentials English language curriculum. There's a lesson for each week. And then after that, you go to IEW. So IEW is not a CC specific material. This is something that tons of homeschoolers use, and it is a writing curriculum. So we purchased this. You can purchase this through CC or through somewhere else, but it is a well-known writing curriculum that CC has picked to use in their Essentials program. Now, this changes a little bit from year to year. This does not change. Once you purchase this curriculum, it's a one-time purchase until they update the, version or whatever. But this is like a one-time purchase. It's this big, overwhelming amount of curriculum. You can see my unboxing video from last year if you want. But you set it up, you have like for a notebook for yourself, the teacher, you have a notebook for your kids. But once you set it up, then you'll just reuse that from year to year. And if you have subsequent children, you use it with them. It's not a consumable. It's not something you have to keep purchasing. You just have to get it one time. The IW is different for each year. So each of the 3 years, IW is different, and it follows along with each of the 3 cycles from Foundations. So this past year, our first year of Essentials, we were in cycle 3, and so our IEW was US-based writing lessons. Next year is cycle 1 and for Foundations, and so in Essentials, the IEW curriculum is like writing lessons based on ancient history. And then for cycle 2, same idea. It kind of follows, not like week by week specifically, but it follows closely to the CC Foundations history curriculum. And so the writing lessons that you do are, easily tied to the history that you're learning that year. So this does change each year. And so you purchase the IEW curriculum based on which year and which cycle you're going into. All right, and then the last part of your Essentials day is just like the last 30 minutes, and they do math. It's not tied to a specific curriculum. It doesn't matter where your child is, like as far as their skills. They're just math games. So Number Knockout is like, I think like the official CC math game that we play for a lot of the year. But then there are other ones that the kids will play. And it's just to practice their math skills, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing in a fun environment with their peers. So there's not anything you have to do at home with the math part. It's unless you want to, but it's just an in-class thing to help them practice their math skills. So those are the 3 main parts. So you said EEL, Essentials English Language, IEW, that's your writing, and then a little bit of math at the end of the day. So going into it last year, I was a little overwhelmed and nervous. Now, I had taken a week during our previous school year, and I had stayed in the afternoon with my oldest so we could observe a class, so that we kind of would like take out the fear of the unknown. And after observing a class, I felt a lot better about going into Essentials. Not that I felt bad about it, but it was just an unknown, right? But once we had gone to the class, I'm like, okay, I recognize some of these things that they're doing from what we've been doing in our language arts curriculum at home, and just kind of getting an idea of how the class went and what they did really helped. So I wasn't as confused, nervous, overwhelmed going into it, but still, it's something brand new. It's a brand new curriculum, a brand new part of our day. It was just new. But, it was fine. It ended up being fine. Language arts is not my thing. I am a math person. I do love reading. I used to be a librarian and a high school math teacher, so I do love those two things. But as far as like sentence diagramming and what's an adverb and all that stuff, like I left that behind in high school. I haven't thought about it in years until I started homeschooling my own kids. It does not come naturally to me. So I was kind of like, and like writing, not really my thing. Yes, I'm a blogger. I do like to write conversationally, but I like, as far as like structured writing, that has never been something that I felt like I was really good at. So I went into this kind of like, you know, this is gonna be hard, this is gonna be new, but it was good. It was fine. It ended up being totally fine, and I'll share more about that as I go through. But if you're feeling overwhelmed and scared, I promise it's fine. Show up that first week, and even if you don't know what's going on, you will figure it out as you go. And that's the beauty of the program and the fact that you don't have it all mastered the first year. Okay, so some specific thoughts about each of EEL and IEW. First of all, when you get this package in the mail that has all these parts and pieces, and again, if you don't know what's going to come in the mail, you can go watch my unboxing video from last year so you can see what is it. Once you get all that, that may be overwhelming. This is probably like the scariest part to everybody of essentials, is what is all this? I know I'm shaking this and you're like, it's just a notebook. It's like a ton of other things. I just didn't bring them all upstairs with me to film this video to show you. I'm just holding one of the pieces. But I made a video last year showing how I set up my notebook and my son's notebook. I was very happy with that setup, and so I'll be using the same thing next year with very little, if any, changes. So you can go see that video if you want, and if you want to, just copy exactly what I did. And then as you get through the year or get started in the year, you can always change things to fit you and your child better. But I was really happy with how I set it up. I watched like a million videos that other essentials moms that went before me had shared, and kind of came up with what worked for me. And I was happy with it. So find my video or someone else's video and just kind of do what they did. Or show up with none of it done that first week and see what the other moms in your community are doing, and then kind of copy them. But it's not as big of a deal as I made it out to be, and others make it out to be, about like getting all this stuff organized. Though I do like to be organized ahead of time, but it's okay if you're not. So then the notebook and the setting up part, that can be kind of overwhelming, but I promise it'll be okay. You know, I was like a pre-planner, and I did all this stuff in the summer and watched all the videos and made the, you know, got it all organized, and then made a video of my own so I could share it. And that was fine, and that was good. And we came to the first week prepared. And then other people just kind of like were brand new and showed up and were like, I don't know what I'm doing, help me. And they were fine too. So it's not like being super prepared before your first week is a big deal. Okay, one thing is that this is marketed as a full curriculum. So everyone will tell you, like what I mentioned at the beginning, once you hit essentials, you no longer have to do, you know, a separate language art at home. Maybe not. It technically can be your full curriculum, but a lot of people end up supplementing. So the guts of it, the main part of it, as far as the charts that you do and the things that you work on memorizing, the sentence diagramming, the sentence labeling, that kind of stuff is done in class, and it is important that you're doing the CC curriculum with that. They do also provide a spelling list for each week, which it's not a CC spelling list. It comes from the Spelling Plus curriculum. That's separate if you want to get that, but they use they provide a spelling list if you want to do their spelling list. They provide a spelling rule for you to work on each week if you want to. None of that part is done in class, so that's up to you at home. They provide, I think there's some homophones for each week that like you can work on, and editing sentences are provided in here. So there are there are Bible passages that are included with this curriculum that your child can use for editing. So some people just use what CC has provided for all that, and that is fine, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people do not do the editing the Bible passages from the curriculum, either because they're super long or it feels weird to edit Bible passages or whatever. A lot of people don't do that. Same with the spelling list. Depending on where your child is in spelling, they may be too advanced or not advanced enough for that spelling list. So a lot of people will kind of change that up. There are resources on CC Connected. So if you don't want to do the Bible editing that's included in the curriculum, someone has made files that have the Foundation's history sentences that your child can edit. There's just like different worksheets and things like that that you can kind of use to supplement that are on CC Connected. And then other people will pull in curriculum from like totally separate sources. So when I first like got started with Essentials, that irritated me. Like I was like, I don't like the fact that everybody says, oh, it's a full language arts curriculum. And then I see all these people buying all these other things to add to it. Like I'm already spending all this money on this. I don't want to have to add a bunch of other stuff. So it's kind of irritated at first, but then I was like, it's not that big of a deal. Honestly, almost every curriculum that I use, I do the same thing. I supplement with other things. I like don't do this part of this curriculum and pull in something from something else. So I kind of got over that. But at first I was like, I'm buying all this from CC and I don't want to have to buy other things. Anyway, it ended up being fine. But if you feel the same way that I felt back, like last year, I get it, I do. So for our first year, I didn't do a whole lot of supplementing with other stuff. I kind of just used the CC things that were provided and started out with that. So we didn't edit the Bible passages. We used the history sentence from CC Connected. And I found some worksheets that practice the homophones on CC Connected. And we really didn't do much spelling at all. And throughout the year, I tried a couple of different spelling things and finally found a spelling program, a very simple one that's actually written by another CC mom. It's on Teachers Pay Teachers. It's called Automatic Spelling. So it's not like a really well-known famous curriculum, but I really liked it. It was not very expensive. It worked really well for us. So we started that last year and we'll continue doing that. But I didn't supplement with a lot. I mostly just used what I found on CC Connected and that worked fine. Now next year I'll add in a little bit more. Next year we'll continue with that automatic spelling that we have started. And I'm also planning to get something called Daily Grams. And use that for just some extra editing practice because yes, there is some editing stuff on CC Connected, but it's like you have to pull it from here and here and here and here, and then you have to print it off. And I just wanted to get something that was simple and easy for my son to do every day. So I think we're gonna use Daily Grams. I've purchased it, it's on the way, and as long as I like how it looks, we're gonna go with that. So you don't have to supplement if you don't want to. You don't have to do it your first year and you can do it later, but I'm just letting you know you might at some point decide you want to supplement. And like I said, the spelling and the editing and that kind of stuff, it's not done in class. So that's kind of up to you as the parent as to how much and what you want to do at home. Do you want to use CC's curriculum for it or do you want to do something different? And that's just something I wish I'd kind of known years ago was that it's not actually, most people don't treat it as a standalone curriculum. Most people will add a few things here and there, which again, it's really not that much stuff or money, but it just kind of like I felt duped a little bit. Okay. The other thing is that it gets progressively harder through the year, which makes sense. That's normal with all curriculums. But like at the first of the year, like, okay, we're doing good. We're editing these sentences. We're diagramming these simple sentences. Like this is good. We know chart A, da 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 da. But as we got on, like towards the end of the year, I was like, I don't know what's going on. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't awful, but it's just a lot of information. My son was actually picking up faster than I was. Like he was doing pretty good and I was still having to like flip through back and forth all the time. Like, no, tell me again, what's this type of phrase or that kind of phrase, or this clause or whatever. That's okay because it was just our first year and we're going to hit it all again next year. Next year, or this upcoming year, we'll start back in week 1 with this more simple stuff and then we'll build it again through the year. And so I know we will know so much more at the end of next year. So if you feel that way, you're probably not going to feel that way at first. Like I said, it starts out very easy and simple. But if you get to the second semester and you're kind of like, now what's going on exactly? Like you're not alone. I was not the only one. There were other moms too that were like, what? So anyway, but it's just a really good curriculum. For IEW, same idea. It starts out very simple. You're writing very small outlines and it teaches you how to like create an outline and then take your outline and use that to write your paragraph or your paper, which it was really helpful because like I said, I'm not like a writer and we had not done any writing curriculum before this. This was my son's very first like exposure to writing and he did fine. It takes you from very simple and it builds up. There were some units that we liked more than others. He and I both are like, we like to read a passage and then pull out the keywords and then rewrite it in our own words. That was good. There were other ones that were like more creative writing and he did not care for those, and I do not care for those, but we did them anyway, and it was fine. So something that's really big about all of Essentials, especially IEW, and our community was great about reminding this, was this idea of easy plus one, which means take what is easy for you or your child and then add one new thing. Add one new thing. You don't have to add 12 new things, just take what's easy plus one more thing. And so it's very easily modified. And, you know, the people in our community were so great about reminding us, just like, you don't have to do everything. If it's your first tour through, you know, just do some of it. Just write 2 paragraphs instead of 3, or just add a few dress ups, you know, 2 dress ups instead of 5. And so that was really a good reminder, because I tend to be like, if there's a checklist, which every week when you write, there's a checklist of things you're supposed to have in there. I feel like I need to have them all checked off, and my son's the same way. And so we're, you know, like trying to get these papers, and there were some weeks I had to just be like, we can't fit them all in. Let's move on. And so it's like, as far as modifications, he did not type anything. I did the typing. That's normal. A lot of parents do the typing, especially for those younger kids. My son had no practice, like he could not type. He could not use a computer. We just have not used computers much up until this point. So he would handwrite his rough draft, and then we'd do the dress ups, and I would type the final draft, and he'd like kind of read over my shoulder, and we'd work together. And so it's okay if your child can't type, you can actually just do the whole thing handwritten, but I think it's easier to make changes if it's typed. So I would type and then we make changes. But, you know, we modified that way. There's just lots of ways you can modify. All right, so a couple of tips for you if you are thinking for next year. One, this is my biggest, hands down my biggest tip, and I'm so glad someone told me this last year, like before we started Essentials, the year before Essentials. Memorize the Foundations memory work, okay? When we first started Foundations years ago, we would go through the memory work, and I kind of took my kids' leads as far as like they loved history, and like from the time my oldest was 5, he just latched onto those history songs, and we would do those a ton because the kids loved those. You know, there were certain ones, the timeline, just certain things that it was more natural for us to repeat them a lot and memorize them a lot because the kids really liked them. And there were other subjects that weren't quite as applicable or interesting. English. I don't know why I just held up my notes for you. Like that, I don't know. Like the English sentences, we would listen to them at community, we would listen to them at home, but we never like really drilled down and made sure we memorized everything. So anyway, because it just seemed like a whole bunch of disjointed random English facts, right? So somebody had told me like their number one tip was to memorize the Foundations memory work before Essentials. And so last summer, before we started Essentials, I got online on YouTube and I found songs for all of the Foundations English memory work for each of the cycles. So I made a cycle 1 playlist, a cycle 2 playlist, and a cycle 3 playlist. And every day during the summer, 3 times a week. So on one day during the week, we would listen to the cycle 1 playlist, and another day we'd listen to the cycle 2, and another day we'd listen to the cycle 3. And we did that every week throughout the summer. By the end of the summer, he had all of the memory work memorized. So even though we really hadn't like pushed it a whole lot, like some of the songs and some of the facts he definitely had memorized, but some of them we just kind of like skimmed over. But by the end of the summer, because we did this, he had them all memorized. And once we started Essentials, I was so glad we took the time and did that, because the biggest thing your first year is this chart called Chart A, and they're really big on memorizing Chart A. And everything on Chart A is found in the Foundations memory work. It's not like there's not a week that says this is Chart A, but all the different components of Chart A are different memory work pieces or songs or whatever. And so because we'd done that, when we got to Chart A, he knew all of it. He knew his 8 parts of speech. He knew the 7 sentence patterns, all that different stuff. So that is my number one tip for you. If you're not already in Essentials, if you are thinking about Essentials in the future, is memorize the English memory work from cycles 1, 2, and 3. And I will share those playlists that I made in the comments of this video, so you can just use those 3 playlists if you would like to for yourself, or if you have your own songs, or you put them on a Yodo player like we do now. But we used to always use YouTube, and now we put them on Yodo player. But however your family likes to do the memory work, I would just turn it on, we'd listen through it. They were pretty short playlists, and then we'd move on. But like I said, by the end of the summer, after doing that for 10, 12 weeks, he had it memorized. Okay, another thing, which I hesitate to even say this because it's not really something you can change, but I was really glad that we have done Logic of English for our language arts up until we hit CC Essentials. So we did Logic of English Foundations, ABCD, and then we did Logic of English Essentials, which is not the same as CC Essentials. They just happen to have the exact same names for their 2 levels. But we had done a year of Logic of English Essentials, and we didn't get through the whole program. We had just started it because we kind of had a gap year between when we finished Logic of English Foundations and when we would start CC Essentials. And I was really glad that we did, because a lot of the stuff that Logic of English does in their Essentials program kind of prepared us for the CC Essentials program. They labeled their sentences the same way. That was the biggest part, labeling the sentences, but it wasn't so much of a shock for CC Essentials. Now, if you have already done your language arts curriculum and you're not, you're starting Essentials in 3 months, you're not going to go out and buy that or anything. But if you're like, maybe you're brand new, your child is in kindergarten or first grade and you're just looking to the future, I would recommend either Logic of English Essentials or another similar curriculum where it has you labeling the sentences, finding the nouns, finding the verbs, finding the adjectives, that kind of stuff, because you're going to do that in CC Essentials. And if you haven't done it ahead of time, it's okay. Your child's going to pick it up. But it was nice that we'd already established those basics. Another tip is start Faces of History early if your community does that. So towards the end of the year, a lot of communities, so they follow IEW, but a lot of communities will do what's called Faces of History, which uses some units from here, but they expand on it. And you write this big paper about someone from history, whichever history time period you're doing that cycle. And at least in our community, the kids dress up and, we invite grandparents and friends and do it's kind of like their final writing project. And they write this paper and then they read it to their class. And it's kind of like our last big thing. And it was a lot of work. It really was. I was really proud of us, but it's a lot of work. And so someone had given me a tip and I sort of did it, but next year I'll do better. Somebody had said to start over Christmas, like picking your person and getting the books and starting to read. Because what you do is you pick a person in history and you find 3 sources, so like library books about that person, and you read it, and then you take information from the 3 sources and you combine them in a paper using all the principles that you've learned over the year. But it is big, it is time consuming. And so I still felt like we started early because we started over what would have been considered our spring break, when our community takes a break halfway through the second semester, and got a lot of it done. But I really wish we'd even started earlier, at least picking our person and getting our books and reading about them and being familiar with them, because it's a lot at the end. And for our family, we also have this really big church event that falls at the exact same time, so we're trying to prepare for that. And so it was just a lot. Okay, that's basically it. My final thoughts are that I was very happy with this program. I was a little nervous leaving something I knew. We've done Logic of English all through since kindergarten with the kids, and they have a program that would have gone, I could have continued going. And so I was like, am I going to be sad that we left Logic of English and switched to CC Essentials? I was not sad. I'm happy with Logic of English. It was a great program, but so is CC's Essentials. I loved it. It was not as hard as I expected. It was hard, which it should be, we should be challenging ourselves and our kids. It definitely had hard moments, but it was not what I expected. I thought it was going to be hours of additional work every day and just so much extra work. And it was not that bad. It really wasn't. It's very scalable. Like I mentioned, our community was very good about reminding us about that. And I'm super excited about next year. Now this upcoming year will be our second year through it, our second tour. And like I said, we are going to be continuing with the spelling program that we finally settled on after trying a couple, and that's automatic spelling. I am going to add in daily grams for him so he gets a little bit of extra editing type practice. And we have started this summer a typing program. It's called Typesy. And the kids have been doing that just to because they did not know at all how to type. It was very hunt and peck. And so I don't know that he'll be typing well enough to be typing his own papers this year, but maybe if we're going to continue with this Typesy typing program through the school year. So maybe by like the spring semester, he'll be ready to start typing his own papers. So that's just, you know, we're just kind of making some little baby steps here to make things a little bit harder, a little more independent for next year. But anyway, that's kind of my review and the overview. Like I said, check out the other videos from last year if you want to see like the actual components of what's in the curriculum, but that's kind of an overview of it and my thoughts. So I hope that's helpful as you are going into CC, into Essentials, and I hope that you love it as much as we do, because we really, really have enjoyed it. Bye guys.